Testing 1, 2, 3. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Mike. It is 11 a.m. Central European Time, and I believe it is the prediction comes to fruition. Now, we appear to be having more lag issues than I can account for. So we're just going to get through the stream as best we can. Now, you might all be sitting there thinking that we're going to be absolutely stinking rich. I have been making video upon video for the OGs talking about this exact scenario now for about 3 weeks. What am I talking about? We have been in lockdown. The government in America has been in lockdown for, I believe, 40 days. Interest rate cuts, a lot slower than normal. Money supply not increasing as much as we want. Quantitative easing not starting until the 1st of December. We can go on and on and on. And last night was the very first twist of that tap. And that is that the Democrats and Republicans in the Senate, or whatever it's called, have come to an agreement, and America will come out of lockdown, come out of shutdown, whatever they call it, probably today or tomorrow. Now, one thing that we've been waiting for, the Litecoin ETF, which should have been called, is here. And of course, Mr. Litecoin himself, Tariq, is in chat. Good morning to you all. We also have the stream going live over on Binance. There's a lot of people over there. Please, mastermind, don't paste your user ID 50 times in chat. It doesn't do anybody any good. Now, what I will say to those of you on Binance, I wasn't too well over the weekend. On Saturday or Sunday, I wasn't feeling too great. So the prize draw for Binance hasn't been done yet. And the giveaway hasn't been sent out. Today, what we're going to be talking about? Well, it's charts day. We're going to have a look at some X-Files, some charts. We're going to talk about, are we going to put in any kind of lower or higher low? Okay, that's the next thing. Okay, we're at 106,500. Fantastic. It really isn't fantastic for me at the moment in time. We're going to look at Schiff, talking about Master. We're going to look at the Ethereum validation queues. Now, the reason we're going to look at that is that a few weeks ago we covered the fact that so many millions worth of Ethereum were being queued to come out, and now we have vice versa, and we have millions of Ethereum queued to go in. We're going to talk about XRP. We're going to talk about DeFi decline. Are the sexes starting to cannibalize DeFi? That's the question. And then I think we have one more, which is real world assets. We're going to look at real world assets again as a topic. So that's pretty much it for the show. But before we begin, you know as well as I do, we're going to go and have a look at the charts. Yes, the deja vu. BNB, $1,000. Deja vu. Solana at 170, a little bit lower than I would like at this moment in time. Cardano, it's back at 60 cents, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to sit here. It's like Groundhog Day. These prices are like Groundhog Day. We move down, we move up, we move down, we move up. But guess what? We always come back to very similar prices for a lot of coins. And Cardano, we talk about 60 cents and 80 cents all the time. And we are sitting exactly at 60 cents. Lots of people have different cent versions of this, whether it be 62 cents, whether it be 78 cents. But the gist of it is that each of these tokens has a safe space. We talked about Ethereum in worst case scenario coming down to $3,600. We're at $3,600. It's just the way the markets. It's just the way the markets move. Just the way the charts act. Now we're going to talk about Zcash as well, because I said that this coin was going to absolutely plummet back below $300. I still don't trust this coin, and I've read the reasoning behind the pump. I've read the reason behind why it's going so high, and a little bit like Hyperliquid, where Hyperliquid was at $60, and I was saying wait for it to retrace to $44 before buying Hyperliquid. I would say the same thing with Zcash. Lots of coins have these runs. Lots of coins go on these massive marauding pumps, and then they fade away. Nobody talks about Ton anymore, and nobody really talks about Sui at the minute. And I think we're going to see the same thing with Zcash. Now, there was another rumour I heard over the weekend, and I'm probably not going to talk about it, actually, come to think of it. I don't want to spread rumours. Rumours don't necessarily exist other than people's heads and conspiracy theories. I'm not going to talk about it, actually. Right then, gainers. Starknet, World Liberty Financial, ASI, Pump, Plasma. Do you know what? It brings a tear to my eye. 3 of the 4 coins that I very, very small positioned into are the they are 3 of the top 5 gainers today, which is WLF, Pump and Plasma. Now, I don't intend to put a lot of money into those coins, but I think they are the coins that are experiencing the narrative. I think that's the way to look at it. The narrative is what coins are being talked about, what coins are in the public eye, and I'm not saying that Pump.Fun is going to be there forever and a day, probably not, but I certainly think Plasma and World Liberty Finance are going to be around for at least the next 2 years, maybe the next 3 years, depending on how long Trump takes to rip to the upside. Render is up, Virtuals is up, a lot of AI news coming back into the public psyche, which means a lot of the AI tokens are going to pump. Aerodrome under $1 is a bargain, it's back at $1.10. You know, you could trade Aerodrome and simply sell it maybe north of 120 and buy it at 80 cents and keep making 50% profits, because that coin has done that now 6-8 times, maybe more. You'd have made 400 or 500% doing that. Not that I would advise that, because I am not a financial advisor, and nothing I say should be taken as financial advice. Right, let me just check who is here. We have a few other people in chat. Shantanu is here. Bullish Mullet is here. Good morning. Now, I didn't stream on Friday. And the reason I didn't stream on Friday is because we put an interview out, which is probably the next thing we're going to show you. We're not going to look at the losers because there won't be any. Everything's up for the day. Now, this interview went on an awful lot longer than expected. And this was the interview that the Oracle did with Dimitri from Compute 3 AI. And it's an hour and 45 minutes. I then decided, in my ultimate wisdom, that I was going to create a couple of shorts. So we've now got some shorts going out about Compute 3 AI. I've put them up on Binance today. I've put them up on TikTok, put them up on X. And basically, there's about 46 different shorts from an hour and 45 minutes. Now, I'm not going to put all 46 up. The Oracle will post some, I will post some, and basically it's trying to condense the most salient parts of the interview. But if you do have an hour and 45 minutes to spare and you want to really understand what Compute 3 AI is, what AI is, the X402 buzz, the 402 buzz you should go and read about. It's not world-breaking, but nothing ever is. It's taking a protocol and allowing AI to utilize it for microtransactions. Microtransactions is one of the whole purposes of crypto, is microtransactions. The future of LLMs and AI, use cases and getting involved, and there is the Oracle himself talking to Nedos. As I said, it was an hour and 45 minutes, the longest interview he's ever done. We don't currently have an interview prepared for this week because we've been let down by 2 individuals, not in a bad way, but just the fact that they can't make it this week. So we don't have one planned. So I'm scuttling around trying to find somebody to interview, for Brogan to interview, that isn't going to make somebody feel like a stopgap. Because we want to interview Alex from Wolfies, but we're not going to bring him on just because somebody else let him go. We're going to schedule him in because that's a different type of interview. We're going to find out like a founder's interview. It's not going to be about Wolfies. It's going to be about him. So that's a different type of interview. Anyway, let's get more into this kind of stuff. Now, this is such a clever thing to think about. I like to look at people who look at the world in a different way. Rory Sutherland is a guy that I follow on X, and he's a chubby, happy chappy, let's call him that, who thinks about the world in a different way. Thomas Kopelman has put this up, and I really like this. During the last 100 years, there have been more 10% market pullbacks than Christmases. Everybody knows Christmas will come. Think of volatility in the same way. So many panic every time the market drops, but it's normal and regular. Now, we talk about this all the time on here. We compare the crypto market to a roller coaster, do we not? We talk about the fact that if you've been on a roller coaster 5 or 6 times, Tariq's a great example of this. Tariq's been on this roller coaster 5 or 6 times, and every time he gets on the roller coaster, he understands the ups and the downs and the swings and the G-force and the scariness. And every time he goes on that roller coaster, he might enjoy it more and more because he can take more in. But he's less and less fearful of the drops. If you're new to crypto or stocks or whatever it might be, and you've never been in this kind of market before, which is volatile, up and down, it's like going onto a roller coaster blindfold. You've no idea what's going on. You don't know why it's going down. You don't know why it's going up. You just need to understand that is part and parcel of anything. If you condensed stocks and shares into a similar time frame to crypto, you'd see the same kind of dips that you had in 2008 and before it was 1992 and 1993, whenever it was. Those things just happen, but over a very long, prolonged period of time because they're more mature. Crypto is, 14 years old? Probably in the psyche of most traders, blue chip traders anyway, 4 years. It's very, very new. You have to zoom out to appreciate that. Like Christmas, expect volatility. That is all I'm saying. Right. Are we here? A problem, and I do not know which one it. Okay. Are we back? We appear to be back. Right. As I said, I think there is a problem with the streaming software connecting to YouTube. I think. And I think that's the problem. Because, as I said about 10 minutes ago, everything works perfectly fine until I connect my streaming software to YouTube, and then it stops working. If I stream on Binance, it works. If I stream somewhere else, which I won't mention, it works. If I stream on here, it kicks me out, and I don't know why that is. I'll check if all the software's up to date. Right then, the new structure bill to modernise the financial system. Trump says the current financial system is outdated and will soon be replaced with a state-of-the-art cryptocurrency framework under the new structure bill. The entire financial system could go on-chain, powered by crypto. So that is Trump's plan. The question is, why is Trump doing this? What is the motivation behind it? I think it is to shift the American debt into crypto. Are we back or are we not back? Right, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go and see if I can fix this problem, because it's cutting out every 30 seconds or a minute. We can't do a stream where it's cutting out every 30 seconds. So, I mean, we can carry on until it cuts out again if you want, or I can basically try and get this working again. Because this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. So what I might do is, let me just make sure we are here and up to speed. I think we are pretty much up to where we are supposed to be up to. I'm just keeping an eye on where we are. Okay, right. Okay, we're going to carry on. And if this fails one more time, we will kill the stream. So, let's see. Maybe it sorted itself out. Trump announces American citizens will receive a $2,000 tariff dividend. That's the first thing. I don't know why he's going to give away $500 billion when the government debt is so high. I would personally pay off the debt, but there you go. Let's close this one down now. Robert Kawasaki, crash coming, and I'm buying. He's targeting $250,000 Bitcoin, $27,000 gold, $100 silver, and $60,000 Ethereum by 2026. Now, what I want to tell you about this guy is very simple. He is an absolute shyster. Okay? It's all well and good telling you that the end is nigh, but he's been doing this on and off now for 4, 6, 8, 10 years, ever since he started writing his books. He gives you targets that we never reach. And then you ask him, nobody ever calls him out on these things. And he will continue to tell you that the crash is coming. Now, listen, the most important thing to understand about this is, another 100%, is if we see a stock market crash, Bitcoin and Ethereum are both going to go through the floor. They are not gold at this moment in time. If gold is at $27,000 and there is a global meltdown, Bitcoin will be at $30,000 or $40,000. Okay? Stock market goes down, Bitcoin goes down. Stock market goes up, Bitcoin goes up. Gold is the inflation hedge at this moment in time. Anybody that tells you that Bitcoin is going to go up when the stock market crashes at this moment in time is being disingenuous, because there is no evidence of this. There is no evidence that Bitcoin will go up if the stock market crashes. What there is evidence of, and a lot of evidence, is that Bitcoin is considered a high-risk volatile asset, and therefore it will come down. So this man, I can't call him what I want to call him, but this man is disingenuous. And we've been talking about his predictions that have been wrong for 2 years. He's been wrong for 2 years. Now, every time I do this, the internet goes off. So every time I hit refresh now, the internet goes off. Right. I tell you what this could be. My memory got upgraded on this machine, and the internet hasn't been right since the memory got upgraded. And I don't know why that would be. But let's just say I didn't really have any internet problems for a very long time until my memory was upgraded on my machine. Maybe something is getting overloaded, I don't know. Now, these are what I would consider to be 5 more sensible targets, and this is Plan C. So, Bitcoin will never go below $70,000. I don't agree with that one, by the way. I think we could go to $65,000 to $70,000 in the bear market if we don't go any higher than where we are now. 2026 yearly candle will close green. Again, if we have a bull run that extends into January or February, we could have a massive dip towards the midterms and then finish the year on a high. So possibly he's right on that one. January the 1st, 2026 will be $130,000 to $150,000. I am in agreement on that one. And then number 4, we will see $200,000 plus Bitcoin in 2026. I can't see that one. But the reason I think number 3 is the most accurate is because if we take into account the delay of what's just happened in America and we add that onto our own targets. So I've said the 24th of Gig, flag in the sand. It's also my wife's birthday. That's how I remember it. If we've gone off again, I'm just going to kill the stream. Right, okay. I'm watching it on my mobile here. So, if we add on a few more weeks to that fictitious all-time high, that takes us potentially to December or January. So January the 1st, $130,000 to $150,000, I think is pretty fair. I think we could be around that target. This internet connection is just not holding up. I keep saying, I'm watching it now. It's lagging all the time. Everyone who sold in Q4 2025 will FOMO back in Q1 2026 to realize the 4-year cycle narrative is over. Again, now, what I've said about this last one, and this is a really important tweet, which is why I'm laboring the point here. The 4-year cycle will come to an end in terms of the explicit highs and explicit lows that we have seen. And what I mean by that is that Bitcoin is a maturing asset and the value of Bitcoin is going so much higher. We're now $2.2 trillion. You can't keep having the 60% downside, 15x upside on Bitcoin when it's at $2 trillion. Now, maybe in the next bull run, we go to $4 trillion for Bitcoin. But do we honestly think that Bitcoin is going to go below $1 trillion from $2.2 trillion? That's the bit that I don't believe with. Now, it will shallow out. So we're still going to get a cycle, but it will be a shallower cycle. Bitcoin may go from 150 to 200,000. And then it might come down from 200,000 to, I don't know, 160, 150, 160. Then it will go back up to 230, 250. Then it will come back down to maybe 190, 200. So the shallowing out of the cycle pretty much ends the cycle, because the cycle is euphoric blow off top. You don't tend to get euphoric blow off tops when we talk about Apple, Amazon, Tesla, Facebook, Meta, you don't get that anymore. And that's because they're maturer assets, and Bitcoin is going to go into that. So I kind of agree, probably agree with number one if we go higher from here. Number two, I kind of agree with. Number three, I absolutely agree with. Number four, I'm out on that one. And number five, I am agreeing with. I have called this the last great bull run. And the reason I call this the last great bull run is simply because I don't think we're going to ever see this type of price action again. Remember where we were in July 2023? $20,000, $18,000. We've run to $126,000. What's that? 7x? Something like that? We're not going to do that again. We're just not. Because if we do retrace back to, let's say, $80,000, to 8x from $80,000, we're really not going to go anywhere near $500,000 in the next bull run, in my opinion. And I'm happy to be wrong, by the way, because I hold, I hold Bitcoin. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's move on. Now we're going to take this slowly because I don't want to keep crashing the internet by. In fact, you know what I will do? I will close that down as well. So we'll have one browser window open, and maybe that's going to help. Now this is the calendar. Again, it doesn't update too quickly from here. I'm watching it live. So I am watching the stream in front of me with you, and it hasn't glitched for 5 minutes. So let's just not spook the gods of YouTube. Right then, so what are we up to today? We are on Monday the 10th, nothing. Tuesday, we don't really have anything. Wednesday, we have a few people speaking, Feds. I think there is something this week, though. Here we go. Yeah, Thursday, we have core CPI. Now, this is a big one. And this will not happen if we are in lockdown. But I don't think we're going to be in lockdown. So I think this data is likely to come out. But I don't know. But it provisionally, this is what we will get. So we should get the CPI data on Thursday. That's the day that we need to keep an eye out on. And then Friday, we have PPI coming out, core PPI. And then we've got a few more Fed people speaking. So Thursday and Friday this week, they are the dates that you need to keep an eye on. And again, what's important with the PPI and the CPI is just how high they're expecting these things to go. Now, we don't have a lot of data on this because everything's been locked down. So we can only hope and assume that this is going to come good. We don't know. Right, we're going to have a quick look at a few things now. Hopefully, this will stay together. And hopefully, you all are still going to be watching this and not typing 1, 2, 3 in a minute. Right then. This is the DXY. I don't need to know about that, thank you. As we kind of predicted, we are heading towards this 100 level here. We're at 99.6. I think we may have bottomed on the DXY. This here is another indication. We couldn't break, we couldn't break, we couldn't break, we broke. We found a little bit of support. We found more support, and now we're up. So we're in an upward trend for the dollar. The dollar is getting stronger, which is significant in the fact that other people now see the dollar getting stronger. So it's more a case of opinion rather than anything else. So for me, this is a good sign for the American economy. Not so much a good sign for Bitcoin, but again, it's just one indicator. But we appear to be have bottomed on that one. So let's be happy with that. I am keeping an eye. We do seem to be back. I am happy. Now, this is the one which we bottomed on a long time ago, okay? And we've spent a long time coming up. But I said, and I was out by a little bit, I said this was going to be rip or dip. This was where we were going to break up or we were going to come crashing down. And look what we've done. We came into the bull market support band of, or the moving averages, however you want to call it, of the Bitcoin dominance. And what have we done? We've been rejected. Now, what are the signs that Bitcoin dominance is being rejected? The fact that some random alts across the market are ripping 60 to 70%. That's a sign that they are starting to outperform Bitcoin. And remember, Bitcoin dominance is a bit of a strange one. Bitcoin price can come down, Bitcoin dominance can go up. Bitcoin price can go up, Bitcoin dominance can come down. It's just the percentage of all of crypto combined that's in Bitcoin. Now, we've been rejected off this bull market support band, but I do not think this battle is over. I do not think we're going to have alt season just yet. I think we're going to see another run at this. I think Bitcoin is going to pump at some point, and I think maybe we're going to have this kind of action, and I think we're going to have another run at this. That's what I think. I could be completely wrong. If Ethereum starts to really outperform Bitcoin, then we know that Bitcoin dominance is going to break down. Okay, now we did break down over here when we were talking about the runaway train. It broke down there and it broke down significantly, but then it did bottom. And as I said all along, there'll come a point where it hits this moving average and it's break up or it's break down. Even when we had the October the 10th dip, we still didn't get through the bull market support band. We might get alt season before the end of the year, if there is going to be an alt season. And there's a lot of people arguing about this, by the way. There's a lot of people out there saying, I told you so, you should have bought Bitcoin and nothing else. And I'm not quite in that camp, but I think you should have a large chunk of your portfolio in Bitcoin. Just maybe not all of it. And again, the bottom signal for me, if we have bottomed, is the fact that so many people are resigned to the fact that everything is now not going to go anywhere near where they thought. Dollar is getting stronger. Time to short. Well, I wouldn't say that a strong dollar is really a massive problem for Bitcoin. Okay, it's only one small element. But I think if Trump gets to the end of this month, end of December, with an agreement with China and everything else, he's beaten the Democrats. They cracked, and they had to. I think he's kind of won his battle. Now, whether his battle works in the long run is a different kettle of fish, because if you bring in a Fed guy, Fed chair, who is uber dovish and just slashes interest rates all over the place, then the markets are going to absolutely rip. Yes, but it's not good for the economy. When you turn that tap back on in winter, if you turn the tap on fully in winter, you're likely to crack your pipes, and then you'll just have water everywhere. So cutting interest rates and putting money back into the market has to be done slowly, and that's what we've always wanted. We didn't want Powell to cut by 2%. We wanted him to start cutting by 0.25% back in June, when he should have done it, and when all of the data from Truflation came through and was pointing to the fact that he could have done it back in June. We were less than 2% inflation back in June. And then the tariffs scared him, spooked him. We've said this before. So it's not a case of turn all the taps on and blow your pipes. It's a case of turn the taps on slowly. And Trump is just impatient because he knows that if he can get the economy absolutely flying in the next 2 years, there's a good chance the Republicans win the next election. So he doesn't really care about the economy. He just wants it to look good for him. Now, this is the total market cap. And we did kind of bounce around this level, which of course was support over here. We bounced back at 3.23. We're now up, what, 5%, 6% over that. So we've got to come back up here, which is about 3.66%, which is another 3% from here. So again, I expect us to move up again a little bit. I'm not expecting us to go to the moon, by the way, yet. I expect us to get up here, and then we will make a decision. And that decision is to do this, or hopefully get back up towards these highs. That is what I want to see. But we have green shoots of recovery, and that is what is important. Green shoots of recovery. Now, before we get into anything else, I thought I'm going to look at the Bitcoin chart very quickly before we begin. This is such a disjointed stream. It really throws me out when we have DCs and everything else and whatever it might be. So yeah, right. I think we're still on. Okay, so the downward trend that we have been in for what feels like 20 years, we are now back inside that range. Okay, the next target up from here is about 110. And then the next target there is about 110. Let's call it 110.50, 500, okay? And then we've got to get back above 114,000. We are nowhere near back, okay? We are at the start of potentially a comeback. Because if we don't, let's just give you another scenario. If we do this and get rejected, there's only one way for us to go, and that's down. So we're back in the range. Everyone's a lot more bullish. The money printer's going to be turned on. Everything's looking bullish. But until we get there, we're not on our holiday, okay? We've got to the airport. We've had our tickets checked back in September. The plane's been delayed, okay? Villain Bear's come into chat screaming that you're not going on holiday because the engines are on fire. But the engines aren't on fire. The plane's still there, ready to take off. And we just need to make sure we get past passport control, which is passport control is here. And then we get past passport control. They check our Hawaiian shirts and our shorts. And then we get back towards the area we want to be in, which is this direction. But we've got a long way to go. 110,000. We've got to hold, by the way, about 104,000. So what would be great is some kind of movement where we come up and we come off that, and then maybe we do that. So we need to find maybe 104 as support before we go anywhere else. But again, there's a lot of positives to take out of this. This was held. And I don't know who held the line. The Spartans held the line at this point because I was convinced we were going to go down a little bit further than we did. And they held that line like troopers. Now is a time for us to move to the upside. And we are still live. We're still here. Unbelievable. So we got to hold 104,000 or we don't go anywhere. Now we're going to go into talk a bit more about Bitcoin. Because it's really the only asset that we should be caring about right now. Everything else is waiting for Bitcoin. Expect new lows expect new lows if Bitcoin remains under $106,000. Now, of course, we are above $106,000 right now. But we've got to hold it. And if we do come down, we need to hold 104. So we are still not out of the woods. This is one of these situations, and I've said this before, we don't know we're in the bull run until we're in the bull run. Now, at the minute, what we've just seen could be the bottom of the blow off top. If you want a blow off top, if you want to fire that stone at Goliath, you've got to pull that elastic band back before you let go and it flies. If we are at the beginning of that blow off top, then we've just pulled the elastic band back. Okay? Now, the government, everything else, the market, the liquidity that's in the market, where are all the prices that are going to give the most rewards? They're all above where we are now. So I think I've covered this. I think I pasted a chart up, which Villain Bear mocked. It was basically all of the different pockets of liquidity above Ethereum. And there was a lot of pockets of liquidity above the $3,400 we were at. Bitcoin is the same. There's a lot of liquidity above. But what will happen is we'll go and get that liquidity. We'll grab that liquidity at maybe 110, 112, 113,000. And then all of the liquidity or all of the profits to be taken are right down below us. So unless there's enough momentum to get us higher, we could go high and then come low again, which we don't want. So Ted Pillows has, we don't care about how many followers he has, we want to know what he's got to say. He said the crypto cycle, super cycle theories are under scrutiny, and it remains to be seen whether they are still relevant, as this is the first time the market has been so volatile and unpredictable for the bulls. He tweeted, Bitcoin is holding above 100,000 level for now. The coin, don't need to read about that one. Until Bitcoin closes a strong daily candle above 106, expect new lows. He followed this tweet with insights. Now, of course, please bear in mind, this was all prior to the price action yesterday. Now, what I would say is that the candles going to the upside are what is actually going to happen. And that is that we come up, we find some level of resistance, and then we come down and we find some level of support. That, for me, is going to maybe 110 and then coming to 104. There is another issue, which is the CME gap. The CME gap is below us now. So maybe there is a short retracement into the CME gap, which is probably about 103, 104,000, and then we go back up again. So there's lots of different permutations, but I think the most important feeling to have right now is hopeful bullishness, I would say. Hopeful bullishness. I'm not going to go full bull, and I'm certainly not bearish, but we're not out of the woods yet. So his tweet suggests that the current situation persists. The premier cryptocurrency may fall below 100,000 and find 93,000. However, there is also a chance to continue between 100 and 106,000 for the time being. We're at exactly 106,000 right now. Only a strong bullish candle above 106 can make its mark on the proceedings. Again, we're just in a really funny situation. And we talk about certainty in the markets, don't we, all the time? We talk about the fact that if you've got the American government in lockdown for over 40 days, the longest in history, if you've got Trump's tax cuts waiting on the sideline, if you know you've got QE coming on the 1st of December, if all of these things are in the market, then you can look at why we're not going any higher, and you can say, well, you know, it's probably where we should be right now, rather than saying, well, we should be at 150,000. I don't care about the fact that the government's in lockdown. I don't care about the fact that the Americans aren't printing money. I don't care about the fact that they can't spend the government budget. I don't care about all that. We should be at 130,000. But you have to take those things into account. You really do. And I know, and I want to get KB on with the Oracle to talk about this, which is show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. Okay, that is the premise that KB and the Oracle and all the TA guys will tell you. And there is so much validity in that. It's more accurate than wrong. But I believe it's more of a feedback loop. I believe the news feeds the charts feeds the news. That's how I believe it to work. I do not believe that the news is entirely responsible for the price, unless it's a black swan. Nobody can predict somebody ending a war or starting a war. Nobody can predict that. But I think there is a feedback loop, and I want KB and the Oracle to come on and do a live stream about that, because I think it's a really interesting topic. I think the idea of knowing what's going to happen in the charts before the news happens or before the government lockdown begins or whatever, I think that's a really interesting topic, and that's what I'd like them to talk about. But again, it's not my show, nothing to do with me. Now, Schiff Master admits Master rising as strategy records 20 billion Bitcoin gain. Bitcoin treasury firm Strategy has posted better than expected financial results, attracting the attention of long-term cryptocurrency critic Peter Schiff. There he is, the man with the greatest beard. I mean, I could only ever dream about having his facial hair. I mean, he is the silver fox of all silver foxes, okay? He is Peter Schiff. He has done nothing but use Bitcoin for his own personal gain for the last 10 years. Because he knows if he bashes Bitcoin, people will talk about gold. And it's just, he's been trolling Bitcoin maxis for years. And you've got to take your hat off to him. I really, really like the guy. But he's so infuriating because he knows how to press your buttons. And that's kind of why I like him. He's like, I'm trying to think of somebody you will know. Luis Suarez. Do you remember him? He was the footballer who played for Liverpool. If you played for Liverpool, you loved him. If you supported Liverpool, you loved him. But if you supported anybody else, you absolutely detested him. Okay? But deep down, you know what an incredible striker he was. Okay? Maybe you don't like Ronaldo because you think he's cocky and arrogant. You got to admit he's one of the best players that's ever played football. Diego Maradona had his problems. Greatest player that ever played. Peter Schiff falls into that category. If you hold gold, you love him. If you hold Bitcoin, you absolutely detest him. And I have a lot of time for this man because I think he knows Bitcoin is an asset that's worth looking at. He knows it. I know he does. You see him smirking when he talks to Ben Cowan and Michael Saylor and people like that. You just know it. But what a guy. You've got to take your hat off to him. If you were going to go into a marketing war with somebody on your side, you would want Saylor or you would want Schiff. They're the two people I would pick in my battle because both of them will put up a good fight for your corner. Anyway, so Strategy have posted results. In a recent tweet, Schiff pointed out that Master is up 6.7% because the company reported better than expected earnings. The entire report is a fraud. The so-called earnings merely reflect Bitcoin's appreciation. Saylor's 2025 full-year guidance merely reflects the claim that Bitcoin will soar between now and year-end. Again, he's got to get Master, he's got to get Strategy, he's got to get Saylor, he's got to get Bitcoin into his tweet. This is how it works. This is the game he plays. Remember, all the world is a stage, and Peter Schiff is a great actor on that stage. So, what you need to take from this is Schiff recognizes Bitcoin as a competitor asset. So he will take every opportunity to talk about it to gain his attention, but also mention Saylor. Now, one thing I do not like about this at all is, and this is important, I am really, 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 really concerned about MicroStrategy and the way that they are building their various different stocks to buy Bitcoin with. Now, they went into Europe with Master E, was it called, which is, for euro denominated. He's obviously got 2 or 3 different financial products now in America as well. And this is all great when Bitcoin is going up. But my worry is that the beta, I think it's called, of Bitcoin and Strategy, or the beta of Strategy against Bitcoin is a lot higher. So if Bitcoin falls 5%, Strategy will come down 6, 7, 8%. And that's a problem. Because if Bitcoin has a big correction, a 25% correction, Strategy could lose 50% of its market value. And then it's not so much the fundamentals of the company, it's the image of the company. Because then you'll start to see the narrative change on Michael Saylor, and people will start to make him out to be a clown. or the Emperor's New Clothes, or the man who sold the world a lie, or those kind of things will come out. And the bigger he gets, the more of a threat he is to the price of Bitcoin. He's not a threat to Bitcoin. Nothing is a threat to Bitcoin. But if something like Strategy went bust, it would bring Bitcoin down to $30,000 or $40,000. Of course, Bitcoin will survive. But will you survive if that happens? The same with Tom Lee. Tom Lee, if he gets too much of a share of Ethereum, he will possibly, through any black swan event, cause a mass liquidation event on Ethereum. That could bring it down to $500. None of these things are going to happen, but there is a possibility. And the bigger they get, the more of a threat they are. And you'd say that about anybody. You know, if you had Manchester United and you had a guy that you didn't like suddenly buying 2 or 3% of Man United every single month or every single quarter, and suddenly they own 10 or 15% of the shares in the company, you'd start to get worried, and you'd say, well, you know, at some point he could force an issue which I'm not going to be happy with. Now, Bitcoin is uncensorable, yes, but the narrative around Strategy crashing would absolutely wipe out Bitcoin, price-wise, not technology-wise. But then you've got to think about, what about all the miners that are leveraged to the hilt? What about if the price of Bitcoin comes so low that all of the miners suddenly become unprofitable? They'll stop mining Bitcoin. The difficulty will fall. The network will start to suffer. So I'm worried long-term about Strategy, and I'm worried long-term about BitMine and Tom Lee. And I think it's great that we have people like Michael Saylor. I think he's absolutely fantastic at what he does. He is one of, if not the best advocates we will ever have for Bitcoin. And we should applaud his ability to bring so many people to Bitcoin. But there comes a point where it goes from a positive to a potential liability. And I'm not trying to scare you into selling your Bitcoin, but you have to have the reality of the fact that if he ends up owning 1.5 or 2 million Bitcoin and owns 5 or 10% of the supply of Bitcoin, it's an issue. And you have to appreciate it's an issue because he's leveraged to the hilt, as is, I believe, Tom Lee. Anyway, he probably doesn't care if the share price goes through the floor because he holds the Bitcoin. Probably doesn't care about that. I know. I'm just talking about optics here. Now then, Ethereum. Do you remember we were talking about 3 months ago, 2 months ago, maybe a bit less, when Ethereum was going towards $5,000? Sneeze. Excuse me. We were talking about people waiting 4 weeks, 5 weeks to get their Ethereum out. And a few short weeks later, we're now talking about a 1.5 million ETH waiting list to start staking. How everything switches. Let me just very quickly check chat. There's a few things. KB would be happy to talk about it. I think it would be a great conversation for you and the Oracle because you're both in the same field. I wouldn't be on it. It would just be you and him because I don't want to get involved with his shows. But I think it would be good to have a list of topics about it to show. SNK, if Bitcoin exceeds the current bearish higher low trend time, it's going to, as you said, at least 110. But in my opinion, probably back to 116, 120. But others, it goes down. I think that's the thing. Every week is important in crypto because we are still so early. And there are critical things. If you're going to have an operation, for example, I don't know, a life-threatening operation, the operation is one thing, but then every week that goes by, you become stronger and stronger and fitter and more healthier. Well, Bitcoin is still in the process of being operated on. It's still not got full adoption. It's still only a $2 trillion market cap. You know, we've got a long way to go. You know, the story of no $2 trillion asset class has ever gone to zero may be the case, but there's a first time for everything. And I think, like I say, every week that goes by, we're at different levels of adoption for Bitcoin at different prices. You know, we were still having these same conversations at $30,000 and $40,000 for Bitcoin. And we said very, very clearly at one point in one of our streams, this is the last time you will ever buy Bitcoin below $40,000. Now we're at $106,000. We're not quite at the stage where we're talking about you'll never buy Bitcoin below $100,000 again, but we're probably talking about never buying Bitcoin below $60,000 again or $70,000 again in the bear market. So those things are the things you've got to take into account. We've moved a long way in 2 years, a long way. But think about how far we've come in 2 years and then think about where we're going to go in the next 2 years. Bear market, midterms, maybe there's a global recession. How is Bitcoin going to deal with all of that? Maybe we don't go through the recession. Maybe we come out the other end. What about the change in politics from left-wing to right-wing politics? How's that going to affect it? Are we going to see more capitalism coming in? Or because of the recessions, are we going to see more socialism coming? There's a lot of things along the path. You can't see that far into the future. But this Ethereum, this brought a smile to my face because we're heading towards $5,000 and people are trying to get out and sell and they can't because there's a queue. And now we've come back down to $3,400, $3,500, and now people are going back into stake because they want to stake it for a little bit more because they don't think it's the end of the bull run. And it's like, where's your conviction? You're like Arthur Hayes. Buy high, sell low. Buy high, sell low, Hayes. Maybe that's what I should call him from now on. So, again, what you should do, in my opinion, which is not financial advice, if you have assets which are staked for a long period of time, 28 days, for example, and you are wanting to liquidate your portfolio in the next, well, at the end of this bull run, whenever that may be, you should probably not wait too much longer to do that, because maybe the top of the bull run is December the 1st. Maybe it's January the 1st. Maybe it's February the 1st. Who knows? But you want to get off. You don't want to be the last person on the aeroplane and you've realized that there's no parachutes left because you're just going to be stuck on the plane, aren't you? I took all of my Ethereum out of staking in January and now it's not staked at all. My Solana isn't staked. My Cardano is, but I think it's a 3-day unbonding period. So if you've got Cardano staked for 3 days, fine. If you've got Solana staked for 5 days, fine. But if you've got Ethereum staked and all of these people are trying to get out, or get in, sorry, now might be a good time to get out, but not financial advice. What I would do if I had Ethereum staked and I read this article, or I'm listening to me right now, I'd be thinking, you know what, my Ethereum staked. It might not be a bad idea if all of these people are trying to get in to get out. Just think about that. So again, a heads up, that was the reason I brought it up. It doesn't really matter what we talk about in terms of like the amount of time. It's a case of you should always go in the opposite direction of what people are doing. People are like sheep. The price goes up, they try to unstake. The price goes down, they try to stake. But guess what's going to happen when the price goes up again? They're going to try and get out. Use liquid staking if you want to earn a reward on your Ethereum. Go and use Lido or one of those. Go and use ones where there's no unbonding period. On-chain real-world asset values rises 5.9% to 35.8 billion. Tokenized real-world assets rose to 35.81 billion. On-chain, I just read exactly the same thing. The stack just keeps thickening. A buffet of private credit, tokenized treasuries, commodities, and alternative funds getting plated up on chain. The tokenized asset sector comes as two stablecoins slipped off their pegs and the broader stablecoin sector over the past few days. Now, the stablecoin thing is really quite interesting because when a major stablecoin depegs, you buy it. And that's not financial advice either. If you saw Tether, Circle, depeg, go to 95 cents, 93 cents, and there's a reason for that, a liquidity crunch somewhere, you buy. Every time in the past it's happened, and it has happened many times in the past, it always goes back to $1 because it's fully dollar backed. And part of the Genius Act is to ensure that every dollar on chain, is backed by a real dollar. Now, you might sit there and think, well, if I go and buy it at 95 cents, how do I redeem it, for example? Well, you can either wait for the price to go back to $1, or you can go off to their website and you can redeem it. So if you buy $1,100 at a depeg, that's technically $1,200. You go to their website and you'll be able to redeem it for $1,200. And the same thing is the case for Syrup USDC. So people say, oh, why doesn't Syrup USDC depeg, or for example? Very simply put, every dollar of Syrup USDC is backed by real assets. So you go to the Syrup website, you can reclaim your dollars one for one. So if it goes from $1.14 and the NAV is $1.14 and it goes to 95 cents, you go and buy every one you can get for 95 cents. Go to Syrup and and sell it for $1.14, and you've made 20% profit. And that happens, by the way, a lot more often than you think. There are a lot of people out there that have done this in the past and made a lot of money, and it's a really good trade, but it's not financial advice. I don't advise anybody to do it. I don't know why I keep saying that today. But I do. Real world assets are starting to move up. Private credit continues to flex, clocking in at 18.7 billion. US Treasuries 8.7 billion. Remember, I think Maple Finance now accounts for almost $5 billion of this market. So it's what, 5, 6, 7, 8% of the total real world assets market, which is absolutely incredible. Inside tokenized private credit, the numbers read like a high yield fever dream. 18.7 billion in active loans, paying 9.78%, with the average paid out about over 2,712 loans. Figure still holds most of the freight with 13.5 billion of those loans, and then there's a list of ones down here. But I think the most important thing here is to understand this is a tiny, tiny amount of money. $36 billion is a tiny amount for real world assets. And at some point in the very, very near future, we're going to hit 100 billion, 250 billion, half a trillion, 1 trillion. And it will come. And you'll look back on some of these streams where we were talking about 35.81 billion, the same way you look back at some of our streams where we're talking about a $20,000 Bitcoin. Some of the streams I watched back recently, I'm sitting there at $18,000 saying, once we break $20,000 and hold it, we're going to go to $25,000. And we pretty much did, because that's how the markets work. So real world assets at 36 billion is it's not even pocket change. It's an accounting error in some of these big companies. Just bear that in mind. So there's a long way to go for real world assets. And when you look at markets that you want to get into, a lot of people talk about speculation. The entire reason Bitcoin and crypto and everything is so high, it's all speculation, 90% speculation. As far as I'm concerned, there's very little speculation in real world assets. There is, of course, especially if some of the loans are backed by Bitcoin. But on the whole, it's tokenizing what already exists. It's just like taking books and putting them onto Amazon Kindle and saying, oh, I don't know if the books are going to work, or taking music and putting it onto Spotify. I don't know if music's going to work on the internet. It's just making a like-for-like transfer of that data. And with real-world assets, there's going to be little problems along the way. You know, asset valuation of buildings, asset valuations of stocks, Oracle problems, depegging of a stock in Web3 to a stock on the stock exchange. All of those things will be ironed out. Of course, there's problems. But at the end of the day, 35.81 billion it's not even a sneeze. It's going to become a multi-trillion-dollar asset class, because there's already assets worth trillions of dollars out there. It just takes time to move it online. And that is fair. I'm fairly bullish on stuff like that. I mean, I watched some guy, I don't know if he was called Gary Cardone or something, giving it absolute nonsense about Bitcoin. I'd sell every house I've got and buy Bitcoin with it. Fine. That's not necessarily the best financial advice that you could give, though, is it? Analysts say Ripple's XRP future lies in trillions, not billions, of global payment flows. Again, the number of people that bash Ripple and bash XRP. I was one of them 4 years ago. I didn't like them. They're not decentralized. They're not a true decentralized cryptocurrency. They're not proof of stake. They're not proof of work. They are a centralized business that has created a token that will solve a real world problem. Cross-border payments, payments in general, and they have done a really good job. They've got to the point where there is an XRPL protocol in the banking papers, okay, that banks use. So don't write off Ripple and X. Brad Garlinghouse has spent years and years and years building partnerships And it's all well and good not liking something, you know. It's like shares. Let's say I support Manchester United, which I don't, but let's say I do. And there is an option to buy shares in Liverpool or Manchester City. Would I buy them? Absolutely. They're the two of the best 5 football teams in the world. So why wouldn't I buy them? Because I support Manchester United? Of course not. This is why I tell you not to become a maxi of every chain. Don't become a Cardano maxi or a Solana maxi or a Bitcoin maxi. Keep your eyes open. If XRP pulls off even half of what they say they're going to pull off, then the token is going to appreciate in value. Not going to go to $700 like everybody keeps telling you, but it will go up in value. Now, apparently, one of the channels that we stream on doesn't like people talking about this. So I, from now on, have to be very, very careful how I talk about this project because channels are being banned. And I can't believe we're having this conversation in 2025, but I would put it down to the number of scams that float around. The number of scams that float around this token in particular are a lot higher than everybody else's. So I kind of understand why they're doing it. But if I talk about this too much, then we could very well be given a red cross, whatever. So I've got to be very, very careful. But don't back against this. Recent strategic acquisitions have positioned Ripple to tap into trillions of dollars in institutional liquidity and settlement activity. Remember, we talked about them buying a company last week. They're making the right moves. All of the court cases have closed. We've talked about this before as well. Nobody was going to buy this token until all those court cases were closed. No risk manager in any big blue chip company would allow you to go anywhere near this project, this company, until those cases were closed. The cases are now closed, and now we're going to look at a rising tide for this project, okay? And put it this way, and I'm not going to talk too much about this because I don't want to sound like I am pro Brad. I'm not pro Brad. I'm pro you guys making money. That's the difference. Now, would it surprise me if they made an announcement in the next 3 months that pushed the price of this token towards $10? It would not surprise me at all. It would not surprise me in the slightest. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me. And the reason very simply is that they are dealing on very large scale deals. And that in turn is one of the reasons why the market cap is so high. They've got competition, which is great. So is Chainlink. But you don't see anyone catching or get anywhere near Chainlink, do you? Because Chainlink spent 4 or 5 years building the partnerships. XRP has spent 4 or 5 years building these partnerships. They've got partnerships with Chainlink, partnerships with everybody else. Don't write them off because you don't like his facial hair. Okay, that is beardist, and we don't like people who are beardist. Anyway, let's move on a little bit. Final for someone sharing the what? The same opinion as mine. XRP is a hoax. XRP is a hoax. Anyway, DeFi sentiment rattled as steep TVL decline hits every major blockchain. Now, I've got a theory about this, but I'll read you a little bit of this first. We're going to have to go soon because it's 12:10, and I've taken into account the problems we've had, adding on an extra 10 minutes. But I know your time is precious, so we're going to be quick. Decentralized finance industry has suffered one of its toughest weeks in months as total value locked across major networks fell sharply. According to Centaura data, DeFi protocols on Ethereum, Solana, Arbitrum, BNB, Smart Chain, and Base all had double-digit declines. Ethereum leads DeFi pullback, -14, -12, -12. We don't need to talk anymore about that. We'll just keep that on the screen. Now, 2 things to bear in mind. TVL stands for Total Value Locked. If you have 1 Solana, total TVL, at $250, and there is a market pullback to $200, then the total TVL collapse on Solana would be 20%. So TVL is really a false number. Number one, you should be looking at how many Solana, how many Ethereum are staked. How much activity is there in DeFi? That's number one. And that is really important because I tell you what, we're going to have an article on here, maybe in a few weeks' time when everything's gone up 20%, saying that DeFi sentiment soars as steep TVL increase hits every major blockchain. That's what's going to happen. Okay, the guy writes the article because he's found a bit of data and he's written an article about it. Fair play to him. He's right. But TVL is a false number in my opinion because it's based on the value of the tokens locked. You could have 100,000 Solana locked on the Solana blockchain and not a single one be added or unstaked and no interest be paid, and the token price can move 10% and you could generate an article like this. So that's false number one. But my counter argument to this is, I think CEXs, centralized exchanges, are going to try and cannibalize DeFi. DeFi, with the likes of Aave and all of the other, Pendle, Morpho, Spark is a really good way to generate revenue. You look at other things like you start to see the apps that are starting to release their interest-bearing tokens and things like that. So I think CEXs have gone, right, we want to be all things to all men. We want to be a bank, number one. We also want to be a crypto exchange, number two. And thirdly, we want to tap into the DeFi people because they're all degens and there's a lot of money there. So what they're going to do is create Binance Alpha or Binance Dex or Binance DeFi, okay? And they will, in the beginning, they will use the likes of Aave and others to generate you a yield. But over time, they will create their own versions. Independent, maybe an independent DEX, but controlled by them, where you will lock up your assets and they will get their share of the profits. So I think DeFi has the potential to be cannibalized by centralized exchanges. And I think that's their biggest threat. Because the majority of people coming to crypto come through the likes of Robinhood or Revolut or come through the likes of Binance to crypto. But then they might go and look at DeFi. Well, what if Binance just offers you everything you need under one roof? Binance Alpha for your meme coins, Binance DeFi for your decentralized yield, Binance NFTs for your NFT crazes. Why wouldn't Binance go after that market when it's so big? Of course it will. So I think even though this headline is a false narrative because it's not based on anything other than the value of the tokens locked, I do think DeFi has an existential threat. And I think what DeFi platforms need to do is actually become CeFi platforms. I think Aave needs to launch an app, for example. I think the likes of Morpho and Pendle, I think they need to start to become more user retail facing. Otherwise, Binance is just going to eat them. And maybe there's a partnership along the way. Maybe Binance and Aave partner up, whatever it might be. But I think that's an existential threat, in my opinion. Now, we've done it. We haven't broken since we had the crash. Even if it reached $10, it will always go down. The potentials are extremely low. Are we talking about XRP here? I think we are, aren't we? What I would say about XRP is, like I said, I didn't like it. And it's centralized, yes. But I have to look at the money it's made me. So I bought at 35 cents. And it's now at $2.50. So I've 9x'd on my money. That's all I care about. If it goes to $5 or $6 or $7 where I expect it to go, am I going to sell my XRP this cycle? Absolutely. I am out. And it's not going to go to $800. Crow isn't going to go to $2.12. Ethereum isn't going to go to $60,000. I could sit here, okay, and tell you what prices crypto tokens are not going to go to. And I reckon 99 times out of 100 I'm going to be right. And there's going to be ones where I'm going to be wrong. Zcash, when it was at $350 or $380, when I said it's not going to go any higher and it's going to come down to below $300, I still hold that. I think it is a narrative that will fade. And if you've got in on that narrative, fantastic. But I just don't see it. It's not going to break into the top 5, is it? Anyway, I had better go because it's really late. Thank you. I don't know what that problem was at the start, but it went. Maybe SNK was right, and maybe somebody was downloading in the house. That's a possibility. Because it does tend to happen at the start of the streams, but by the end of the streams, we're okay. And I don't understand why that is. But anyway, thank you all for watching. You are all legends. I am back tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Oracle is back tonight at 9 p.m. So please tune in for the Oracle. We do stream on Binance Square and somewhere else. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oh, hang on 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. I have got something to show you. This is going to be real time, fancy graphics when I get it to work. Hang on. There we go. Right, get ready for this. Get ready. You are not going to believe what's happening on Wednesday. I can't believe I've not mentioned it. I can't believe I have not mentioned this. This. Where is it? This is my phone beeped. Broke my ear. Right, where are we? Okay. I don't know if you're ready for this. But this. Let me just make it a bit smaller. I shouldn't really have done this live, but hey, who cares? Who cares, right? This is what we are doing. Is that in? I think that's pretty much good. This is what we're doing on Wednesday. A dog quiz. Now, just bear in mind that when we do this dog quiz, I mean it's a dog quiz, okay? Not anything else. It's about dogs, all things dogs. We're going to do this on Wednesday. It is not sponsored by anybody, which means that the prizes are going to be very, very cheap prizes. We might even give you dog NFTs, okay? But the dog quiz is on Wednesday. And after that, next Tuesday is Wolfies, which is $100 prize. So next week is the big one. And the reason we're doing it on Tuesday is Wednesday is the day of my operation. So we're going to have to do it the day before. I don't know when I'm going to be streaming after my operation. I don't know. It could be 2, 3, 4 days. I don't know. But next Tuesday and this Wednesday, we've got 2 more quizzes. So a quiz, dog quiz night. I hope you all turn up. And I know there are people out there who are cat fans, but we had the cat quiz from you. This is the dog quiz. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Take care.